Hey guys, I'm Yari Dareglia of Jump Zero. Welcome to a new lesson of programming with Objective-C. This is the first of 3 lessons focused on Foundation. In these lessons, we'll get to know this framework, learning how to use some of its main classes. Today we speak about the root class NSObject, then the NSString class, which you already know but we'll get deeper in its functions, and then we speak about the NSNumber, NSURL, and NSData classes. Okay, so let's begin. The NSObject is the root class of Foundation. The hierarchy of every object, or at least most of them, starts from the NSObject. An NSObject is a class used as base for other classes, so you hardly use it directly. Introspection methods like isMemberOfClass and isKindOfClass are defined in the NSObject class. NSObject implements functions related with selectors, like for example the methods respondToSelector and performSelector. And then every method about object initialization, like the alloc and init method, that we have sometimes overridden in our examples. This isn't a complete description, of course, and the list is way longer. If you're curious, you can open the NSObject interface and take a look at its full implementation. We have already used the NSString in the previous lessons. You will remember that thanks to this class, we can create Unicode strings and perform operations on them. We also know we can create an NSString using the directive @. But let me show you some more features, starting from some classes methods. For example, we can create a string with a specific format template with the stringWithFormat method. So this is a class method, and it uses string template as first parameter. And just after the template, we write the arguments to replace the wildcards. This method will return a string. Another way to create a string is using a C string. This is a common operation if you work with some external C frameworks. So we can create a C string, that is a pointer to an array of chars, and write the string. For instance, I'm a C string. You notice that we don't use the @ symbol before the string. This is a C string, not an NSString. Okay, now we are using another NSString class method. It is called stringWithUTF-8string, and it requires a C string. We use the one we have just created. And with that, we can convert a C string to an NSString. Okay, cool. This function is a shortcut to the more complicated method stringWithCstring encoding that lets you specify the original string encoding. At this point, we can use some instance methods. Let's try and modify the previous string using the method stringByAppendingString. In this case, the string will be appended at the end of the receiver string. So let's check the result in the console using the nslog function, and we get the new string generated by the union of 2 different strings. Now we can replace some characters from the ASTR variable, and for this purpose we can use the function string by replacing occurrences of string and replacing Yari with Mike. This function looks for the first parameter in the NSString instance and replaces it with the second. Let's compile and see the result. And as you can see, Yari has been replaced with Mike. Okay, there are many other useful methods in the NSString class. You can take a look at the documentation to find even more info about it. Now, let's move to the NSNumber class. This is a wrapper for scalar type like integers, float, and booleans, and it works in a straightforward way. You just create an NSNumber starting from a primitive type. This we can write NSNumber, num, equal to NSNumber, number with int, for example 10. And you can access the value through any function that can perform a conversion. For example, we can get a float from the previous integer using the float value function. So float f equal to num float value. As you can see from the documentation or from the class interface, It defines a set of methods for setting and getting data with a huge list of data types. This class, as we'll see in 2 lessons, is particularly useful when we work with collections. Another really interesting class is NSURL, a class to define URL like HTTP, FTP, and file path. We have different ways to create an instance of NSURL, but for this example we simply create it from a string to use it later. We can use the class method URL with string and define a web address with a string. At this point, the last class I want to show you is the NSData class. With this class we can easily represent a buffer of bytes, so we can use it, for example, for getting and storing data from the NSURL we have just created. We create an NSData instance using a class method called DataWithContentsOfURL, and we pass it the NSURL instance. The variable data now contains the HTTP response, and we can, for instance, print its length using the length method. This way, we get the size of bytes contained in data. We can also convert this data into a string, obviously using a NSString function. So we create a new NSString instance, parameterizing it with initWithData encoding, using as first parameter the instance of NSData, while as second we specify the encoding, in this case I'd say UTF-8. Now let's add the NSLog function to output the HTML content. Let's compile. And okay, we get the HTML code received as response for the URL request. Okay guys, this is all for this lesson. In the next one we'll get deeper into Foundation, analyzing the date management with NSDate, NSCalendar and NSDate components. Bye and thanks for watching.